Hello everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. In our last episode, we saw how Queen Victoria got a little irritated with Princess Alexandra because she took the side of her own country. Princess Alexandra had charm and knew how to use it. Queen Victoria could never stay mad with her for long. She knew her son wasn't easy to deal with. Speaking of him, it sounds like he may have been unfaithful, but he loved Princess Alexandra. Princess Alexandra had a great love for her children. There was money issues due to the cost of improving Sandringham and its property, but also the prince and princess weren't very good at handling their finances, but mainly the big taker of the money was the property in Sandringham trying to fix it up. So it took a lot to reconstruct things. So let's see what's going on today. In August, there was a great family reunion at Coburg where the Queen unveiled a statue of the Prince Consort. It was not a happy gathering, and only the princess's tact and good humor made the occasion bearable for the Queen. Lady Geraldine, whose waspish pen made the worst of any piece of gossip, recorded that Mrs. Harginge, a lady-in-waiting, described the assembled royalties as constantly quarreling and at fisticuffs, with the exception, of course, of your dear little princess. The year of 1865 was one of bickering and disagreement. The question had risen. It was going to divide the royal family into two opposing camps. The question of Princess Helena's engagement to Prince Christian of Schleswig-Holstein. The problem of finding a husband for Princess Helena had messed with Queen Victoria's mind. Marriage had taken the two elder girls away from their homes in Germany. Understandably, the Queen longed to have one daughter always at hand. She had hoped that her daughter-in-law might have filled this need, but as she wrote to Uncle Leopold on the subject, "Alex I can't depend on, as they are never with me for long, and besides she knows none of my intimate affairs. Princess Helena therefore must stay at home, but not necessarily as a spinster." A plan to marry her to a prince of Oldenburg came to nothing. Either Linden must remain in single blessedness, which would be most unfortunate, the Queen told King Leopold in the same letter, or we must find someone else. That someone else must be prepared, of course, to live in England and to subordinate his own claims on his wife's attention to those of his royal mother-in-law. Even without the stipulation, the problem of marrying off Princess Helena presented difficulties. As Countess Blanchard wrote bluntly, "She's wanting in charm." Then Prince Christian came along. He was the Prince of Schleswig-Holstein-Augustenburg, and Prince Christian was neither rich, handsome, young, or amusing. There was an anecdote that showed his personality. In later life, he was unfortunate enough to lose an eye in a shooting accident. When conversation lagged at a dinner party, as happened so often when he was a host, he would bid the footman to bring him a tray containing his collection of glass eyes, which he would exhibit to his embarrassed guests, explaining at length the peculiarities of each one. "This one, you see, is bloodshot. I wear it when I have a cold." This was the man selected as a bridegroom for a 19-year-old girl of considerable ability and intelligence. The Queen's second daughter, Princess Alice, believed that her sister's happiness was being sacrificed to her mother's convenience. The Crown Princess, on the other hand, sided with the Queen. On Princess Alice's side, there were her two brothers, the Prince of Wales and the Prince Albert, and also the Queen's cousin, the Duke of Cambridge. By far the loudest protests came from the Prince of Wales, urged on by his wife, who in this matter felt more strongly than any other member of the royal family. Because the proposed bridegroom had taken the enemy's side in the German-Danish war, the princess was not prepared to treat him as a friend, much less a cousin and brother. She regarded the match as a deliberate insult to her parents and to Denmark. Worse still, she chose to see it as a personal reflection on herself, an indication that the Queen no longer loved and approved of her. "What do you say to this charming marriage of Helena?" she wrote bitterly to Lady Macclesfield. "I cannot say how painful and dreadful it will be to me." The Queen tried to make light of the opposition, but secretly she was a little afraid of the reaction of her son and daughter-in-law. From Balmoral she wrote to King Leopold on September 14, 1865, "I fear that when Bertie and Alex arrive, the hubbub will commence, but I will not allow it to do so. I have much to go through with his marriage, which was disliked by all our family. At first the prince and princess had tact, and the queen wrote to King Leopold, "Bertie and Alex, though not naturally not liking it, have taken the announcement of Lynch's matrimonial prospects much better than we could have expected." It wasn't long, though, before the prince voiced his very determined objections. So strong was his opposition that he announced his intention of absenting himself from the wedding ceremony. At this threat, both the crown princess and Princess Alice took fright. Princess Alice had somewhat altered her opinion. She still believed that Princess Helena was being sacrificed to the queen's convenience, but she now realized that the girl herself was more or less a willing victim. Princess Helena saw clearly enough that if she did not marry at all, this was her one chance, and she was prepared to grasp it. Hoping to prevent an open rupture in the family, Princess Alice sent her brother a charming and affectionate letter in which she begged him to relent. "Oh, darling Bertie, don't let you be the one who cannot sacrifice his own feelings for the welfare of mother and sister. Mamma knows and deeply regrets what you feel, but nowhere would she find another, and as she almost broke with Papa's only brother and all her other relations and friends for you and Alex, saying never should political feelings stand between her and her son's happiness, do you both, dear ones, repress your feelings for her mother's sake, and let not political feelings toward Alex's relations stand between you and your own sister's happiness." The crown princess wrote in similar terms, assuring the prince that his marriage was no sign of any change in the queen's affection for his wife. "You know Mamma loves Alex as much as she must not take this marriage as proof of the reverse, which it is not." Prince Alfred, whose views always carried weight with his brother, wrote in more down-to-earth strain. "The engagement has taken place, and we must put a good face on it. Of course the relationship is painful for you, but you must try to accept him for what he is worth personally, and don't look at him with a prejudiced eye, for he is really a very good fellow, though not handsome." Other people, too, were anxious to avoid a public show of disapproval on the part of the prince and princess. The queen's private secretary, General Grey, wrote knowing well enough the strength of the princess's popularity, he feared that the nation would be on her side, not on that of the queen, and if there should be an open quarrel over what Lady Geraldine stigmatized as this abominable, disgraceful marriage with a miserable, starveling German princeling. The prince, under pressure from his own family, withdrew his opposition, but the princess could not bring herself to be so accommodating. "I cannot tell you what I have suffered," the queen wrote to the crown princess. "Just before Christmas, Bertie is most affectionate and kind, but Alex is by no means what she ought to be. It will be a long, if ever, before she regains my confidence." On June of 1865, the princess gave birth to her second son, Prince George. The baby arrived a month early. The queen, who conceived it her duty to attend the confinements of her daughters and daughter-in-laws, never succeeded in being present at the birth of any of the princess's children, because they had the inconvenient habit of arriving long before she had been led to expect them. The queen wrote to her son, "It seems that it is not to be that I am to be present at the birth of your children, which I am very sorry for." The arrival of this child brought great joy to his other grandparents, the King and Queen of Denmark, saddened as they were by the death of Princess Dagmar's betrothed, the Tsarevich Nicholas. Queen Louise, who had no great command of the English language, wrote her son-in-law a charming, unstudied letter of congratulation, which shows very clearly the real nature of the woman who Queen Victoria persisted in regarding as an unprincipled schemer. She starts, "Well, my dear children, you are the most extraordinary pair I know, and I feel so happy as if I were a newborn baby myself. Thank God. His blessing is on you. May you never forget how merciful and gracious our Lord is to you. The burial is Friday, but I must not name it in this letter. You see, I write on pink paper. I'm dressed in colors for Freddie and now your second son. How proud you must be. 2 boys. Don't you grow more attached to Alex at every present thus brought to you in pain and anguish?" The queen then talks about the child's early arrival. "What will your dear mamma say? Will she not say it's all weakness in Alex?" Queen Louise herself is quite unperturbed. "If the children are healthy, they can have any other secret. Why would they want daylight before their time? I only hope it's a good sign for their character to be before the time, and good impulse of their life, and for every good and noble deed." Queen Louise could find personal comfort in the birth of this second grandson, but the political outlook for Denmark and her allies was bleak in the extreme. In June 1866, Prussia launched what Sir Philip Magnus describes as a coldly calculated aggressive war against Austria. This action horrified Queen Victoria, who at once found herself at one with her daughter-in-law in dismay at Prussian aggression and dislike of the Prussian Chancellor Bismarck. When Austria capitulated at the end of the 7 weeks' fighting, many of the princess's relations who had taken the Austrian side found their territories annexed by Prussia and themselves deprived of their personal fortunes. But although Queen Victoria could sympathize a little with the princess's anti-Prussian feelings, she was nonetheless going through one of her periodic phases of disapproval of the princess herself. The upbringing of the two little boys was a source of contention. Alex and I never will or can be intimate. She shows me no confidence whatsoever, especially about the children, and so too was what Queen Victoria referred to as Alex's going on, or at least going out, so much in society. She declared that her daughter-in-law is grown a little grand and has become haughty and frivolous. She even complained of a want of softness and charm, an accusation so unfounded as to show more clearly than anything else how strained the situation had become. The Crown Princess was the recipient of most of these complaints, and she was wise enough to know that irritation always melted away in the sunny warmth of the princess's actual presence. On November 9th, she wrote and urged the Queen to see more of her daughter-in-law. I know Alex has the greatest wish to be now and then alone with you. She says she's not amusing. She knows and she fears that she bores you, but she loves you so much, and it seems to be a little ambition of hers to be allowed to be alone with you sometimes. It was Bertie who told me this, and it quite touched me. It would please them both so much if you would take her once for a drive or a walk alone with you. The Queen took this good advice, and at once peace was restored. Dear Alex arrived here yesterday with the tiny little boys. She wrote from Windsor on November the 14th. She is dear and good and gentle, but looking very thin and pale. I was some time alone with her yesterday, and shall take her out alone this afternoon. Queen Victoria said, I have taken a nice walk and a drive with dear Alex, and nothing could be nicer or dearer than she is. I never saw a purer mind, and it's quite charming to see her and hear her. She looks delicate. I do love her dearly. While the princess was visiting the Queen at Windsor, the prince was at St. Petersburg for the wedding of his sister-in-law to Tsarevich Alexander, brother of her first betrothed. The union was a happy one. Princess Dagmar had specially begged for the prince's presence because so few of her own Danish relations could afford the expense of attendance at a Russian imperial marriage. Being once again pregnant, the Princess of Wales had been forced to stay behind, and she confided to Princess Louise that the 6 weeks' absence of her beloved one seemed an endless time. Princess Alexandra and her younger sister-in-law, Louise, had a charming relationship. The princess called Princess Louise her little pet, or my own dearest Louise. She bemoaned the fact that Queen Victoria never allowed Princess Louise to stay either at Sandringham or Marlborough House, and she begged her to think sometime of the sister who loves you. In her trunk, Princess Louise gave her sister-in-law little presents of china pugs and confided to her all the tangled complications of young love. In St. Petersburg, the prince was reported to be paying too much attention to various Russian beauties. When he returned to England, he found his wife slightly ailing. On February the 15th, she complained of pains and chill. He insisted on leaving London to attend a steeplechase and a dinner at Windsor. 3 telegrams were sent after him, but not till noon the next day did he return, to find the princess in agonizing pain, suffering from a severe attack of rheumatic fever, and she had intense anxiety. On February 20th, the princess gave birth to a daughter. For the past 5 days she had suffered acute and constant pain in her leg and hip, and now she had to go through her confinement without relief from any anesthetic, the doctors thinking it wiser not to administer chloroform, although, as the prince wrote pathetically, she wished for it very much. The Queen was not allowed to see the patient until a week after the baby's birth. When she was at last admitted to the sick room, she was horrified to discover the tone of her son's letters had been far too optimistic, and that the princess's condition was much worse than she had been led to believe. The princess had weathered her confinement better than could have been expected. Neither the rheumatic pains nor the fever showed any signs of abatement. The doctors were of the opinion that any moment the condition might become serious. One of the Queen's most attractive characteristics was her quick sympathy with any invalid. She said of herself that she always felt drawn to a sick bed. Now she was all solicitude and kindness, sending flowers and presents, and frequently making a special journey up from Windsor to visit the princess, while she was described as being in a most pitiable state. When Princess Alexandra was feeling overwhelmed by pain and sleeplessness, she said so pitifully, "Will it never get better?" and laid her dear, sweet, weary face on my shoulder. The princess appreciated the Queen's affectionate attention, but she really relied chiefly on Lady Macclesfield for motherly love and comfort. She was completely at ease with her. Lady Macclesfield wrote home to her husband, telling him how the poor little darling liked to be petted and loved. Only the Queen and Lady Macclesfield seemed to have realized how serious her illness was. The doctors issued cheerful and quite unrealistic bulletins. The prince's apparent unconcern was a source of constant irritation. Queen Louise, that kindest of parents, failed to grasp how very ill her daughter really was. She replied to Lady Macclesfield when it was mentioned how much the princess longed to see her, "Pray do not humor her too much in giving way to her sensibility, but rather cheer her by advising her to overcome this feeling of depression." And this was cold comfort indeed for her daughter, who could take no food because of the inflamed state of her mouth and throat, nor sleep without doses of the strongest opiates. The pain in the knee was so bad that sometimes Lady Macclesfield would find her crying most piteously. It almost makes me cry to hear her. The prince's reaction to his wife's illness was not a helpful one. He might have been full of anxiety, but he was also behaving in a manner to give exactly the opposite impression. Night after night he would be out seeking his pleasures until the small hours, while his wife lay awake, consumed with anxiety till his return. In one of Lady Macclesfield's letters, the princess had another bad night, chiefly owing to the prince promising to come in at 1 a.m. and keeping her in a perpetual fret, refusing to take her opiate for fear she should be asleep when he came. And he never came till 3 a.m. So I'm going to end the video here. And we saw that there was a conflict with the royal family regarding Princess Helena and her getting married. There were those who opposed and those who agreed. Princess Alexandra had 2 more children, a boy and a girl, and the children always seemed to arrive earlier than expected, much to Queen Victoria's disappointment, because she wanted to be there for the births. And during this time, we see clearly how much the Prince of Wales thought about his own desires and left his wife in pain and sickness, because he wanted to do what he wanted to do. No wonder Queen Victoria had a negative outlook on her son. She knew before they got married how he was as a man, and Queen Victoria wondered if they should marry at all. And she loved Princess Alexandra, even though they had political disagreements. Queen Victoria was always concerned about her. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. If you happen to see a search button that comes up under the video, if you could click on it, it would help my channel to be seen by even more people and keep my channel growing. I really appreciate all the viewers who have been with me through the years, and also our new arrivals. It means a lot to me. And more importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day. Tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.